In the Shadow of the Valley by Maggot Moshpit. Chapter 15. The suns rose steadily over the treetops, illuminating a truly strange scene. All four fugitive travelers were jammed inside one bush, looking at the seemingly barren wall that towered over them. The capital. Once the great city of canine folk, it now housed the self-proclaimed conqueror of all canine territory, the Feline King. Marten shifted uncomfortably.
Arbalest, isn't something supposed to be happening? You left that note last night.
Arbalest was focusing his attention on a tiny drainage pipe that protruded from the wall and drained into a river. Since the city was built on the side of an incline, the engineers were able to build a foundation that included an advanced drainage system for rain to prevent flooding or erosion. The opening was as tall as Marten and as wide as two bronzes, and was graded off.
I told you it would take a while.
Bronze squinted at the wall.
Is the note there anymore? Can you see the parchment?
All four strained their eyes.
I can't tell.
I think I see something, but... Hey! Look!
From the small grate, just barely visible between the bars, a tiny red flag waved once, then disappeared. Arbalest stood up.
That's the signal. It's safe to go now.
He began walking casually towards the grate, the other three following behind with some apprehension. Bronze kept glancing up at the wall.
You sure it's safe? I saw police on that wall not 10 minutes ago.
I trust Cress. He won't let us down.
As they approached the wall, the grate began to move, a couple bars being removed by unseen paws. The four crossed the shallow river and were greeted by a mouse. He was armed with a rather large crossbow, which he aimed at their feet.
Arbalest, I thought they dragged you off for murder.
Arbalest gestured to Cathresh.
I was saved by her, and now I'm back. Got business in the capital.
Arbalest stepped forward, but the mouse raised his crossbow.
Wait, who are they?
These are my friends. They're all looking for a wise man by the name of Pill. Don't worry, they can be trusted.
The mouse narrowed his eyes.
Names? Origin?
Marten stepped up.
I'm Marten. I come from Frostblight.
Bronze, from far east across the sea.
I'm Cathresh, from Bark.
The mouse thought for a moment, then beckoned.
All right, the watch will be back on the wall any minute now. Hurry!
As they clambered into the drain, it became clear there was more than one figure in the tunnel. There were many, but in the darkness it was impossible to make out their faces. Arbalest looked at the mouse and grinned.
Is there a chance we can skip the blindfolds, Cress?
Nope.
Within seconds, Marten, Bronze, and Cathresh had grain sacks pulled over their eyes, blinding them. Arbalest laughed at their reaction, his voice muffled by the sacks.
Relax, it's just a precaution.
The sound of torches lighting and low, incomprehensible chatter began to fill the drain as they were led down the tunnel.
Hey! This isn't necessary.
Can't risk having you be spies, now can we?
Calm down, Marten, you won't be hurt.
Marten kept quiet, and aside from the occasional rock or flight of steps, Arbalest was right. After a long, wet, and cold walk, the sacks were pulled off their heads.
There you go. Welcome to our home.
It wasn't as large as Marten expected. A few torches illuminated a sad scene. Alongside a deep river of dirty water which ran downhill in the direction the travelers had come, sat or lay a motley assortment of scavengers and canines. Each one looked cold, hungry, and wet, the damp from the tunnels constantly soaking into their fur. Marten gulped as he looked around. It was a depressing sight. Cress led them along the stone ledge that overlooked the river.
The broken remnants of those citizens too patriotic or cowardly to leave the capital, all squatting here in the gutter.
Arbalest drew in a deep breath of air.
It hasn't changed a bit.
Marten glanced at Bronze and Cathresh. Both looked as appalled as he did.
You live like this, Arbalest?
Arbalest nodded, and he and Cress led them down the tunnel a little ways.
Oh, yes. It was better than living on the streets.
Most of the residents of the gutter did not look up as they passed, staring into their navels or over their meager possessions. The ones that did look up at least didn't look totally broken, some still having a glimmer of hope in their eyes. But only a glimmer. Cress stopped them and pointed out a spot on the ground.
Wait here for now. I have some catching up to do with Arbalest here.
The spot indicated was barely enough for the three of them, flanked by a sleeping squirrel on one side and a wall on the other. Arbalest waved as Cress descended a ladder that appeared to lead into the water.
This'll only take a minute.
Marten looked off the edge to see that there was a smaller ledge below that led off to the left, but in the darkness it was hard to see where Arbalest and Cress had gone. He slumped between Bronze and Githresh.
This isn't what I expected at all. It's a refugee camp.
Yes, it is, Marten. And it's probably the friendliest place in the whole city.
Bronze looked between his footpaws at something that caught his eye.
Yeah, complete with bloodstains and the moans of the damned.
Marten tried to relax.
Jafreza will save these people. Don't worry.
No people will save these people.
Bronze retorted. The squirrel next to them whipped his bushy tail and growled.
Shut up, you three. Some of the damned are trying to sleep.
Sorry.
Arbalest and Cress walked along the narrow ledge until they came upon an opening in the wall. It led to a room lit up by foxfire. It was small, but it had a strangely ornate table in its center. Arbalest and Cress sat at it. Cress cut right to the chase.
Murder, Arbalest?
Arbalest scowled.
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, okay? I didn't...
Hey, I'm not judging you. In fact, I think the little bastard had it coming.
Don't you ever say something like that again.
Cress looked confused.
What?
He was my friend, Cress, and I didn't kill him.
Cress shrugged.
I wouldn't blame you if you did.
Arbalest narrowed his eyes, but said no more. Cress sighed.
So, what do you need?
I need the amulet.
What amulet?
Arbalest went quiet for a moment, then gestured vaguely to his neck.
The one he wore.
That filthy copper one? Listen.
I know you think Hayate betrayed us, but I know he didn't. He was my best friend. He couldn't have.
Cress's expression softened.
So you want the amulet as a keepsake. I get it. But you know as well as I do, Hayate was a traitor, and if you didn't do it, someone gave him what he deserved.
Arbalest stood hastily.
So you won't help me.
Cress stood and grabbed Arbalest's paw.
I didn't say that, friend. Sit. If it means that much to you, I'll help. Let's see if we can't figure out where it could be,
Marten had fallen asleep, and Githresh was nodding off slightly by the time Cress and Arbalest returned. Arbalest kicked Marten's footpaw, and he snorted.
Hey, what took you guys so long?
Never mind that. Get up. We're going.
Bronze scrambled up.
Where? To find Pill?
Arbalest shuffled uncomfortably.
No, we're parting ways here. You go find your wise man, and I'm going to take care of my business.
Marten nodded.
The thing you lost?
Yeah.
Cress whistled, and a couple refugees rose and stepped forward.
Let me take you to the city, then. I've heard of this Pill, and I think I know where he might be.
Before any more words could be exchanged, the bags were once again thrust over the heads of Marten, Bronze, and Githresh. This time, however, their winding path through the dark tunnels led them upwards, mostly. Eventually, the smell of slime and stale air gave way to the smell of dust and old books. Marten bumped into a wall.
Ow!
Cress chuckled as the sacks were once again taken off their heads. They seemed to be in a cellar of some sort. Arbalest was nowhere to be seen.
Where?
He took a different path.
Marten was a little surprised. Then again, it was just like Arbalest to disappear without so much as a goodbye.
Oh.
Bronze didn't look too distraught over Arbalest's sudden disappearance as he looked around the room.
So, where are we now?
Cress walked over to a large dresser and rummaged around inside.
You're in my bookstore. I don't live down below, and I won't until the police catch up to me. Which, they won't.
He walked over to the three, carrying a stack of robes.
Put these on.
The three obliged, as Cress continued.
Now, this Pill you want to find, I hear he might be working with the army on something or other. You'll need to get to the tall building near the highest point in the city. You'll know it by the spike on top.
When the three had finished dressing, they looked like anonymous, cloaked figures. Githresh shifted uncomfortably.
What's this get-up?
You're brothers of the Order of La Roja.
All three looked at him from their low, gray hoods. He sighed.
Ugh. Okay, if anyone talks to you, make sure to say, "By La Roja's beard," and "blessings of La Roja be upon you," and such nonsense. Get mad if people stop you. You have power in those robes, but if you do something wrong, people will know right off.
Marten looked to the other two, but they were as confused as he.
What's the wrong thing to do?
I don't know. I've never gone to church.
He gestured to a door.
You'd better get going. Oh, one more thing, though. Arbalest says you can be trusted, so I do. But if you breathe a word of me or the gutter to anybody, I'll probably kill you.
Bronze gulped.
Thanks for the blunt warning.
Cress ushered them out the door.
No problem. Now, go on through the shop and follow the hill up.
As the three shuffled out of the cellar, through the bookstore and into the streets, they were treated to an awesome sight. The next morning came early for Redrick. Even through all that had happened, he managed to get a few hours of sleep. However, he awoke in the small hours of the morning and lay awake for a long while, thinking. He didn't know which surprised him more, the fact that Halen would help the Felines, or how easily the crowd was swayed to the Regent's side. He could only imagine how Miri felt. He wanted to see her again, but he knew it probably wasn't a good idea. He sighed and turned over in bed, feeling useless. Miri didn't sleep at all. Everyone thought the Regent was innocent, and Frey was dead. She kept playing the scene back in her head, and wondering what would have been different if she had just said something. Why didn't she? She didn't know. She just wanted to see Redrick. He would probably say something comforting, and something that might be painful to hear, but in the end would be true. She sighed, and turned over in bed, feeling guilty. Rita awoke to the worst headache she had ever experienced in her young life. As soon as she was awake, she moaned out in pain. Harimau came running.
What's the matter?
She clutched her stomach and almost threw up onto Harimau. Luckily, he was faster.
Let me get Halen.
She felt around the blood-crusted, bandaged lump on her head. She wondered what Cole would say if he were here. He would probably scold her for being reckless, or some other nonsense. Harimau returned with Halen, who brought with him more herbs. Rita caught Harimau's eye as Halen began brewing another mixture.
We need to look for my father.
But Rita, we need...
We can't just leave him back there.
Harimau looked into her now tear-stained face. His heart was split.
Listen, Rita. If Cole were here, he'd want us to leave, and not risk our lives on a hopeless venture like this.
Hopeless? You don't know that. What if he's alive and out there right now in need of our help?
Harimau swallowed what felt like a large rock.
Well...
See? You don't know.
Rita lay back, clutching her head and groaning again. Halen approached with his mixture.
If I may.
Rita nodded weakly, and Halen leaned over her, lifting the bandage gingerly. Rita winced slightly as Halen applied the herbal paste.
There, that'll help with the swelling. I couldn't help but overhear what you were saying.
Rita sighed.
Don't you start.
Halen ignored her.
You remember Troy, right?
Of course I do. That was last night.
Well, that's good. She's my daughter. Of course you know.
I guessed as much.
I don't know your father, but I'm going to guess he loves you as much as I love Troy. I would give anything to protect her. I have given everything to protect her. I wouldn't want my child to throw away her life for me. Nor should you want to throw away yours.
Halen walked for the door.
I must go to work. I'm the head blacksmith now. I'll be back around lunchtime, and then you'll probably have to leave. We're due to be searched.
He walked out of the room and gave Tojenka a quick kiss as she laid out breakfast. He grabbed one of the thick breadsticks and headed for the door without another word. Rita now stared at the ceiling, a pensive look on her face. Tojenka entered with some bread.
Please, eat something.
Harimau accepted a stick of bread, but Rita refused.
I won't be able to keep it down.
Tojenka left the bread anyway. Harimau sat beside the bed and patted Rita's paw reassuringly. Pill's workroom looked very similar to the one back in his home on the mountain, even though he had only been here a few weeks. The room was filled with junk. Half-baked inventions, dishes, parts, and tools littered every surface except a small bed in the corner of the room. Pill himself was what you would expect, short, skinny, and with horrible posture. He was a tiger, but white instead of orange and black. He was looking down onto the busy street, working his head around the latest problem he had created. There was a loud bang at the door, and he sighed in exasperation.
What?
A black panther entered. He was wearing a tight-fitting coat and had braided fur. Good evening, Pill.
Yeah, what is it?
The panther walked over to the table, regarding it with a look of mild disdain. I am here on the request of the king. He would like to know how far you have come in the development of his new weapon. Pill snapped his fingers.
Yo, that! Yeah. Come here.
He scampered excitedly over to a workbench covered in pots and containers. On the wall, above the table, was a detailed sketch of an odd-looking contraption.
Okay, so you know when you dragged me from my home without any of my stuff?
I do.
Well, I was creating a new weapon, and I had a prototype all worked out. But then you came along
I know what happened. Please, cut to the chase. Pill gestured to the blueprint.
I figured why not make something 10 times bigger, now that I have to start from scratch?
The panther rolled his eyes. Why do I even bother with you? Pill rapped him on the shoulder.
Because I'm a genius. This is a weapon that can destroy walls rapidly, and at little cost.
The panther had little idea what he was looking at. Is it some sort of battering ram? Pill stomped his foot.
No, it's a ranged weapon. See the hole? A stone ball is placed in there and then fired at things.
The panther was not impressed. What are we supposed to do to launch it? Blow on it?
Look at this.
He gingerly lifted the lid off of a dish that looked like it was made for cakes. In the dish was a fine black powder. Pill gathered some with a scrap of bark paper and placed it in a metal goblet. The panther noted that the goblet was charred and dented. Pill spoke as he rummaged in some more junk.
I knew I needed something that would act like some sort of furious fire, if you will. A force that would push a ball up a tube like that. I experimented with many flammable compounds until one exploded.
He took out some sparking rocks and approached the goblet. He struck them over the goblet, and instantly it leaped off the table with a mighty roar and a plume of flame. Pill laughed as the panther leaped back with a growl. LaRoche's beard!
I know! Now imagine that 10 times, being forced out the end of a metal tube.
The panther looked at the now totally destroyed goblet and coughed. Good work, I suppose. What is that stuff made of? Pill indicated a few things on the table under the blueprint.
Charcoal, sulfur, and most importantly...
He lifted a lid on another container as the panther leaned forward.
Insect scat.
I will inform His Majesty you've made promising breakthroughs.
And?
And you're a genius. Pill smiled.
Good! Oh, before I forget, take this sketch and have someone make this.
Pill retrieved the blueprint, tearing off a piece to keep and handing the rest over. The panther accepted the blueprint and bowed. I shall. He left without another word. Pill returned to the window. His view from the top of the tower was excellent, and he could see most of the city. The city that no longer had a name. The city built by canines and inhabited by felines. Pill grumbled. He may not have cared about the war at the beginning, but now he was in the middle of it all and had no choice. He watched the streets below, full of laughing felines and their miserable canine or scavenger servants, once citizens of the city, but now forced into a life of service. Pill looked at the scrap of paper he tore from the blueprint. Neatly printed on it were 2 words. Drafresa's dagger. The 3 Tracker brothers strode wearily up the beaten path towards the capital. They had been looking at its spires all morning, and now could see its gates. Zip smiled.
We've only been here once, you know. Have they come up with a name yet?
Zick grunted.
I don't know. Probably not.
Suddenly, a group of soldiers popped out of either side of the road and leveled spears at the approaching small army.
Halt!
Ah, here we are. Farrell!
Farrell ran up as a small delegation stepped forward from the soldiers that had just jumped onto the path.
Yes?
Get our orders to show the city police.
Aye.
A lioness stepped forward. She looked the weary soldiers up and down and chuckled.
You look like hell. Identification?
Farrell ran up with the orders from the regent.
Here.
The lioness took the tube and reviewed the scrap of bark paper.
Oh, looks like you royally messed that one up.
Zip shook his head.
You have no idea. We think they've taken refuge in the city.
Well then, we'll find them in no time at all.